Man, where to even begin when talking about Hollow Knight Silksong? We'll get to everything I love about the game in this review, but being a sequel to one of the most beloved indie titles of all time, I will have to compare it to its predecessor from time to time in this video. As much as I would love to just judge the game on its own merits, I would be remiss not to compare and contrast to the original, so I just wanted to give that heads up. And you know, it's funny, with my Hollow Knight review, I was able to wax lyrical about the game ad nauseum. The video was over 30 minutes long, and honestly, it could have been twice that long of me just talking about every single little thing that I loved about that game. I wrote that script so quickly because I just wanted to talk and talk about how wonderful and unique everything in that game was. Every moment that was so charming or memorable. To give some context, I only played Hollow Knight for the first time just 10 days before Silksong came out, and I did a 112% completion on it. It was one of the most fun and memorable gaming experiences I've ever had. I also had some diehard Hollow Knight fans watching me play the whole thing on Twitch and helping me when I got stuck, so suffice to say, the game quickly became one of my all-time favorites for a variety of reasons. So Silksong had a lot to live up to, not just for me, but for the community as a whole. And you know what? I think it did, at least for me. Where I stand on it is this. Silksong, I think, is a better game than the original, but Hollow Knight was more memorable. So now, let me talk your ear off for however long this video is going to be, and explain why. I think Silksong had an almost impossible task to live up to. In 2017, Zelda Breath of the Wild came out, and it's the reason I bought a Nintendo Switch and got back into gaming. I was in my 20s and just busy with life and stuff, so I hadn't gamed in a few years. But Zelda hooked me deep. I loved that game. And then when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I bought it and played it and have fun, but it didn't stick with me like the first one, and I would venture to say it's an objectively better game. The crafting, the underworld, and Skyland giving you almost triple the amount of space to explore. It was bigger and better in almost every way, and yet I never even finished that game. Like I said, it just didn't hook me the same way, and I sort of feel that way with Silksong. I'm not saying it's bad by any means, just that it was now something that we'd already experienced. Breath of the Wild was all new and novel, so it really stuck with me, where Tears of the Kingdom felt like more of the same, but just iterated upon. Which is what sequels aim to do, I suppose. It isn't a knock on the game, but just the reality. I hope this makes sense, but I really wanted to give some context here, that maybe one reason I loved Hollow Knight so much was because it was something completely fresh and new and exciting. It just made more of an impact on me. That being said, I already have 30 more hours in Silksong than I put into Hollow Knight, and that included all of the Hollow Knight DLC. So that's a great place to start. The content on offer in Silksong is immense. The map is bigger, there's more secrets, more bosses, more ways to play thanks to having different crests, more ways to augment your build with tools, more movement abilities with the claw line. I think Team Cherry did a wonderful job with the direction that they took the sequel in. I don't think quote-unquote more Hollow Knight would have been good enough. And to be honest, I think they landed in the perfect sweet spot of staying true to the Hollow Knight series while switching things up enough in the gameplay to make it feel fresh and new. They had an almost impossible task to live up to from the first one, but I truly believe that they did. I mentioned there is just more systems in every way, so I think it's clear now why it took them 7 years to develop a sequel. They have a small team, and the amount of content in this game is mind-blowing for a $20 title. Like, truly. I just finished a Steel Soul speedrun and did the 100% completion, but I didn't complete the Hunter's Journal or get every memento. And there are a couple of achievements that I could still try and pursue, but the point I'm making is that this game has a ton to offer and the replayability is nearly limitless. So as I just mentioned, one of the things that they really expanded was the combat. This game cranks up the combat in every way. Hornet moves much faster than the Knight, and she has a wide array of crests which can change up her attack patterns and her pogos. And within these crests are hidden perks. Sure, the game gives you a vague description of them, but just like in the first game when the charms gave no tooltips on how much extra damage they do or exactly how they work, they leave it up to the player to try it out and see how they like it for themselves. I praised this design choice in the original, and I still love it here. Would I love to make build guides with detailed damage breakdowns? Sure, but I have never been into modding games, so I guess that just isn't in the cards for me with this game to do that, and that's okay. I love how true they are to their design choices. The minimal UI is just as clean in Silksong, just showing you your tools, Silk ability, Silk gauge, and the health bar. No boss health bars, no damage numbers, you just go by feel. There are few things more satisfying than taking out a boss when you are 1 health on the brink of death and you deliver that final blow that you didn't know was coming. I find that it just feels so much better when you don't see the health bar. You're just going off intuition and feel. It adds to the immersion of the game, and Team Cherry captures this feeling yet again in Silksong. And with all the new moves and tools at our disposal, surely everything must be stupid easy in Silksong, right? Hell no. There's been a ton of discourse around the difficulty of Silksong. Sure, Hornet is just a flat out better warrior than the Knight, but Team Cherry cranked up the difficulty in many aspects of the game. The traversal is much tougher in my opinion. The only thing I really struggled with in Hollow Knight was Path of Pain, but in Silksong, they have a ton of tricky traversal areas. Cogwork Core can be tough, Bilewater was certainly very difficult, Mount Fey is pretty tricky. You also have Hunter's March, which isn't all that difficult, but in the early game, it sure feels difficult. You likely aren't used to the diagonal pogo yet, so you will land in a ton of spikes, and then if you do reach where you are going, there is almost guaranteed to be an enemy right in your path to greet you, or a flying enemy in just the wrong spot to block where you're going. You thought Primal Aspids were bad in Hollow Knight? Well, now almost every region has its own version, and they are just as, if not more, annoying. It's incredibly frustrating how some of the enemies in this game move. The birds that fly super sporadically, the floating pilgrims who throw their coins and are super passive. They back up if you get within like 10 feet of them. But these are design choices. As you play through Silksong, you can feel Team Cherry trolling you. All the falling boulders, the trip mines, the bench at the end of Hunter's March. You finally get some much needed reprieve from the diabolical early game traversal just to get smacked by a trap that deals 2 masks of damage, when you only have 5 to start with. The game borders on unfair. It's designed to piss you off. But when you realize that it's all intentional, at least for me, it makes me respect the team behind it. They know exactly what they're doing. Bilewater and Sinner's Road and the Putrefied Ducks are all extremely obnoxious areas to traverse. But again, it is designed to piss you off. I knew nothing of Hollow Knight before playing it a month ago, but I have since come to learn that people hated Deep Nest in Hollow Knight. Ironically, this was one of the first areas I went through. Again, I was totally blind, so I was just going where I wanted. I didn't find it too bad to be honest, but my chat told me that it's quite rare to go through Deep Nest first. Maybe that set me up to find everything else much easier and also not be accustomed to easy areas first, so it made it feel less bad. Where with Silksong, you start in beautiful Moss Home, an area that gives Green Path vibes, which was my favorite area in the original, but when you get to the more aggravating areas like Bilewater, it can be absolutely rage-inducing. But again, this is all intentional. Team Cherry are masters at designing things to be frustrating and annoying. But before I venture off on a tangent about the level design and aesthetic, I want to bring it back to the difficulty because this has been a big topic in the community since the game came out. The game, in my opinion, is harder than Hollow Knight, but I think the game gives you the tools necessary to ease the burden of difficulty. This is a topic for a completely separate video, but the true skill gap in any game is knowledge. Hollow Knight simply had less systems going on, so the level of knowledge needed to overcome challenges was intrinsically less. There was less to know, so there was less of a knowledge gap. In Silksong, there are so many different strategies that you can use to kill bosses. How do I know this? Because on my other channel, I made boss guides for every boss in the game, and I read all the comments, and I saw a ton of amazing ideas in there. The Delver's Drill for Father of Flame, spamming cogflies and conch cutters or boomerangs at Goal the Great. I could go on with strategies that people shared in the comment section. Many of them were amazing ideas, but if you're just trying to brute force this game with your needle alone, you're gonna have a bad time. Unless you're just a crackhead gamer, which a lot of Hollow Knight enjoyers are, it's insanely impressive some of the stuff this community can pull off. But yeah, the game is certainly difficult, no doubt about that. But I'm not a cracked gamer in the least, and I was still able to beat Steel Soul in under 5 hours to get the speedrun achievement as well. And how did I do this? Not skill, but knowledge. I leveraged the tools that the game gives me and used them to design a route through the game that let me accomplish this feat. I got the precise tools that I needed to make my life easier. Fractured Mask, Threadstorm, Double Jump, Cogflies, Magma Bell, a couple other things here and there, but those were the big things. As long as I had those, I knew I stood a chance. But in your first playthrough, you would not even know that these things exist. So you may be limiting yourself greatly. So yes, the game is difficult. But a lot of people cry and say that the game doesn't let you get OP like in a Souls-like Elden Ring, where you can grind power or get an OP weapon, but they're wrong. Fractured Mask is like giving yourself 15% more health in the early game, and it also acts as a one-time get out of death free card. Magma Bell reduces flame damage from 2 to 1. This is significant when you only have 5 masks. Double Jump will help you greatly in certain traversal sections. I could go on, but the point is, by exploring, you can find things to make you stronger. It just feels slow and tedious because you just have no idea where you're going or what you're looking for. But once you do, the game becomes easier. And on the knowledge topic, you will also grow greatly in combat after you learn a boss's moveset. On my Steel Soul run, I was really impressed with how much I'd grown. The Morwing fight was a huge example of this. Yes, they nerfed it slightly from my first run, but I struggled a bit on my first playthrough, but on my Steel Soul run, I smoked them. But the biggest example to drive this point home was the giant ant that blocks the road to Hunter's March. I was stuck here for quite a while on my first playthrough. I didn't have the dash yet, so he was very difficult. But in Steel Soul, I fought him after upgrading my nail twice, I believe, and having the dash, and he falls over like nothing. Obviously, he's an early game boss and is designed around you being underpowered, but again, this goes to show how much easier the game can be when you level up and come back to a previous roadblock. The game is designed in this way. That is why beating the speedrun is difficult. You don't have time to go around and level up, so you have to beat endgame bosses while underpowered. So another part of the reason the game is so hard is because it's new. Put some time in, beat the game, and then do a repeat run, and you'll be shocked by how much easier some of the bosses feel. For me, Last Judge was so much easier on my Steel Soul run, that boss felt like it was slow motion compared to the first time I ran it. That being said, I do see why people hate Savage Beastfly. It's an obnoxious fight because of the spawning ads, but the biggest problem with a lot of the bosses and enemies in this game is contact damage. Taking 2 masks of damage for running into a boss is honestly a joke. This is the one difficulty thing I would like to see toned down. The amount of times I died to the true final boss because I ran into her after she teleported is rage-inducing. It genuinely feels unfair. On my Steel Soul run, I took contact damage on Sister Splinter, which again is just a joke. She was fucking downed and then apparently I ran into her. This is the one instance where I think the game is too unforgiving and I don't like the design choice. Outside of that, I think the difficulty is pretty much fine. People say it's not satisfying to beat a certain boss and it's more just a relief. I agree for sure on some bosses, especially Grohl. He was just so annoying that I totally get that feeling. I wasn't happy I beat him, I was just relieved. I don't rage too much in games, but that boss definitely had me raging. I was just so pissed off. Bro, I just got absolutely juked! Fuck off! I guess what I should do there is take the big guy? I don't know. Nice, game! All that fucking traversal for nothing! I just didn't want to fall in the water. Fuck me. All because I got fucking knocked back slightly. Unbelievable how quickly this fucking fight can turn around. Dude, again, it's in the fucking roof. I can't see it. Oh, let's go. Oh my god, that fight is pain. I never got that mad in the first Hollow Knight at any point, but as I already spoke about, I think that the design was intentional, that Team Cherry wanted to piss us off in BioWater. There are way too many annoying instances in this game where you just know that those guys were sitting back and laughing when they designed it. What the bait? Is there a breakable wall there, or that's just literally bait? So next, let's talk about level design. The areas, again, to me, were a little less memorable than Hollow Knight. I don't know what it is, but I just prefer the world of Hollowness to Farloom. I can't really explain it. It could just be the new feeling like I described with Breath of the Wild at the top of the video. Also, one thing that adds to the environment is the musical score, and once again, Christopher Larkin knocks it out of the park. There are a few boss encounters that are especially memorable. But again, no places jumped out to me in this game like Green Path or City of Tears did in Hollow Knight. It gives you ore. Wait, yeah, I do want to go down. I adore those musical scores, or the Nightmare King Grim boss fight. Everything about that fight is peak. So to reiterate, I think the music and levels are amazing in Silksong, but to me, just not as memorable as the first game, but that's totally subjective. The Citadel also just wasn't it for me. I have a very hard time navigating where I'm going in video games, and that place was just confusing as hell to me. I felt I could sort of learn my way around the outdoor environments, at least somewhat, but in the Citadel, I was just totally lost. And speaking of the Citadel, let's talk story. Or rather, the main objective that we're trying to accomplish. Just like in the first game, I really had no clue what was going on story-wise. In the original, you're kind of just thrown into Deepness with a couple map markers and told to explore. In Silksong, you're told to just head to the Citadel, and then once you get there, you have to find the melodies to open the elevator to the cradle and take out the final boss. Sort of similar to the first game in that you have 3 objectives that you have to accomplish before getting access to the final boss. I really like this, as it gives you a bit of direction, but it doesn't hold your hand. On top of that, the 3 objectives are all different. One is traversal based, one is a puzzle, and one is an enemy gauntlet. And that gauntlet was the one thing in the entire game that had me hard stuck to the point where I left and came back. I just couldn't beat it without double jump and only 5 masks. So I went out, I found upgrades, and then I returned and beat it on my first attempt. This really enforced in me that this game is not too difficult, but you have to make yourself stronger before tackling endgame areas or you're gonna have a hard time. And then, on my Steel Soul run, I was able to beat it with only 5 masks, which also solidified to me that time in the game and having knowledge and growing as a player also helps you improve and overcome the challenges. I mean, who'd have thought? What a concept. The more you play a game, the better you get at it. But honestly, it really encourages exploration, which is one of the best parts of these games. There's so many hidden secrets to find. Any wall could be breakable, any ceiling could be hiding a secret above you. It promotes you checking every nook and cranny of the map. And the way they all interconnect with each other is honestly remarkable. It's probably my favorite thing about Metroidvanias. The level design in these games just never ceases to amaze me. Things are just out of reach in the early game, but then you get the dash or double jump and suddenly the map is opened up to you and new routes can be discovered. And the traversal has been cranked up a notch in this game. I mentioned Mount Faye and stuff already, but I really loved having challenging traversal all throughout the world. It made it really fun and engaging. In the lava run, oh man, one of my favorite moments in the entire game. It was just so cool. And in the real late game, you get yet another traversal tool, and you can go back to places where you were before and see that they've changed. I love an ever-evolving world, but it is a double-edged sword because one problem is this. And to be clear, this is a problem I have in any game with this structure, and that is that you can miss certain things, hidden bosses or whatever else. I missed 2 boss fights on my 100% clear, so even though I cleared it 100%, I'm sad because now I have to go play through it again to finally see those fights. This is simply the nature of the genre though, so I can't knock it too hard. The cool thing about hidden bosses is that they're hidden, so if you find them, it's really cool and exciting. But being a perfectionist and a completionist, while also being someone who wants to play the game blind with no guides, it means that I am at risk of not getting to fully experience everything the game has to offer. Again, this is a me problem, not a game problem, but just something I thought I'd mention. One addition that I do love is the new quest board, just little mini side quests that give you rewards. If you thought the delicate flower quest was rough, wait till you see the courier's rasher delivery quest. But all in all, personally, while I love being told nothing and being left to my own devices, I also do love completing side quests, so the introduction of them in this game was very welcome. Also, instead of finding grubs, we find fleas, which are just as adorable. And speaking of fleas and side quests, at the end of the game, there's fun little mini games with the fleas. Again, you can fully understand why Team Cherry said that they were just having too much fun with designing this game, because there is so much to do and so many fun little things thrown into the game. And we also have another cute little character who hums a catchy tune, just like Maya from the first game. Huge shout out to Sherma. Please never stop with these. I love them. And speaking of characters, I love Hornet as our protagonist. I love how matter of fact she is. She's a no nonsense type of bug, but she also has a tender side with her love for soft furry bugs. I just really like how they wrote her dialogue and the dialogue of most of the NPCs in general. Once again, it was very well done. All the characters are just full of charm. I also like how we get our own little home in Bellheart. It's cool to have an area of your own that you can decorate a little bit. On the performance side of things, the game ran flawlessly. No stutters, no crashes, nothing like that. Sometimes I would miss a pogo, even though I would hit down on the D-pad, but the truth is, I probably just didn't hit it in time and I need to get good. The controls are responsive as hell. Finally, I did talk about difficulty, but not really the enemies and bosses. The enemies are more obnoxious as I mentioned, but I think they are better in Silksong. Going with a bugged-themed video game is a great idea because holy shit, there's a lot of kinds of bugs. I really like the Ants and Hunter's March, but all through the game, the enemies are amazing, and the bosses are all very well done. Nightmare King Grim is still probably my favorite in the franchise, but that came in a DLC, so I'm super excited and also a little scared to see what they come up with for DLC bosses for Silksong. Scarsinger Carmelita was great, the Cogwork dancers were tragic but memorable, Trobio is a total showman and full of personality, First Sinner was fun as hell, a really high octane and fast paced fight which I love. The boss variety on display here is amazing. Sure, the early game has Savage Beastfly and Sister Splinter which spam ads which can be considered lazy boss design, but to me, it's just something different. The gauntlets were not as fun as the Colosseum, like no way did the Coral Tower gauntlet hit the same as Colosseum 2 or 3, but regardless, I appreciate them offering a variety of different encounters. Though with Scarsinger and Grohl, I would have preferred no ad waves at the beginning of those fights. But again, these are just opinion-based preferences. The bosses as a whole were great in my opinion. So many good ones. I honestly think that's about all I have to say on Hollow Knight Silksong. As I said in the opening, I absolutely love this game and I'll be playing much more of it just for fun and as DLCs come out. I think it improved and iterated on an already winning formula in a lot of ways, and while there were certain aspects I like a little less, there's also certain aspects that I definitely liked more. All in all, I am nothing but impressed with what Team Cherry cooked up. And now, I join the millions of adoring fans in the long wait for the game that completes a trilogy. But if Silksong has taught me anything, it's that it will definitely live up to the hype. Anyways, that's it. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, consider liking and subscribing. Come watch me play Silksong and other games on Twitch at itstizzle7, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.